Hi there, this is a Polish Up Your Pedagogy on formative assessment. This is part 3 out of 6 videos, and this video is on learning intentions and success criteria. Here is how our full session today links with the GTC standards for full registration. It addresses standard 3.14 and it also links to East Lothian's expectations of high quality teaching and learning outlined on the learning sale. It states that learners have regular opportunities throughout the learning process to demonstrate their progress and achievement through well-planned formative and summative assessments, appropriate to individual needs, and to ensure that learners and practitioners build a shared understanding of learning by identifying, sharing and clarifying learning goals and success criteria. Shirley Clark supports the understanding that formative assessment is a process. She describes formative assessment as a set of teaching and learning processes that empower children not only to progress, but also to become owners of their own learning. She states that there are 5 elements to formative assessment that overlap and depend on each other if they are to be effective. The element that sits at the top of this diagram is the importance of sharing learning intentions and success criteria, or learning goals, with learners. And it is this element that is the focus of this Polish Up Your Pedagogy. So today's aims in this video are to develop an understanding of the importance of sharing learning intentions and success criteria, and to outline some practical ideas to help learners identify, share and clarify learning intentions and success criteria. So why is it important that learning intentions and success criteria are identified, shared and clarified? As the teacher, it's you that plans next steps based upon where you want your students to get to. And as the teacher, you know your destination. You know what learning you want your students to gain. As William says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. However, we shouldn't just assume learners have the same ideas about their next steps in learning as we do. Learners, teachers and their peers must be on the same page. They all need to be aiming for the same destination and know how they're going to get there. Learners need to have the same ideas as teachers about what they're meant to be learning. So learning intention and success criteria need to be shared, discussed, explained and clarified so that they're clear. Learners, teachers and their peers need to be clear about what they need to know or understand in their learning and what criteria will make that learning successful in any related task they're being asked to complete. So what makes a good learning intention? Well, a learning intention states what the pupils will be learning in that lesson or over the next series of lessons. The context of the learning does not need to be explained or defined. So, for example, a clear learning intention for a writing lesson may be to be able to write clear instructions, because this is what the pupils are learning to do. This is much clearer than to be able to write a set of instructions about how to make a cup of tea, because in this example, the context has been given. The instructions are about how to make a cup of tea. But actually, what the instructions are about isn't the key learning. The purpose of this lesson is to be able to write instructions. So what are success criteria? Well, they break down the learning intention into specific parts or elements. Shirley Clark refers to them as the steps or the ingredients necessary to achieve the learning intention. She compares success criteria to a recipe. You wouldn't expect someone to be able to make a chocolate cake without a recipe, a list of ingredients, the instructions, and maybe even a picture. And this is what the success criteria are. They're the different parts that help learners achieve the goal, the learning intention. William states that when we as teachers are in formative assessment mode, the purpose of success criteria is to bring about the success that we're aiming for. So if we think about the previous learning intention, to be able to write clear instructions, then the success criteria may include, I can use different openers, like first, next, afterwards, or finally. I can use numbers or bullet points. I can use capital letters and full stops. In this example, learners need to be able to see the learning intention success criteria while they are completing the task. So this might be on an interactive whiteboard, in their jotter, on a worksheet or a card beside them, or on the wall. This may not always be necessary, but learning intention and success criteria must always be shared, explained, and discussed, maybe even orally. And they need to be accessible so they can be referred to throughout a lesson and not just at the start. So identifying and sharing the learning goals or learning intention and success criteria is crucial. However, William argues that this cannot become formulaic. It's going to be very boring for our learners if we start every single lesson by sharing our learning intention and success criteria on the whiteboard or talking about them orally. Furthermore, displaying or sharing them at the start of your lesson can sometimes actually spoil the journey of learning. So it might make sense to share the learning partway through or at the end of the lesson. Sharing a new learning intention for a new maths topic may not be relevant and meaningless if the learning intention contains vocabulary which the learners have never heard or used before. So at times there needs to be some teaching or modelling that needs to take place first before new learning can be identified, shared and clarified. William and Clark both also value the importance of co-constructing the success criteria together with learners. Research shows that by involving learners in discussions about what a successful piece of learning looks like, then there is a greater possibility that learners will apply the criteria to their own learning. So how can we co-construct success criteria with our learners? Well, we can give learners examples of other students' work to discuss their strengths and weaknesses. Once examples have been discussed, what makes a successful piece of work can be identified and used to construct success criteria. A variation of this activity could be to give learners examples of excellent pieces of work alongside their own. By showing learners multiple examples and allowing them to compare them to their own work, we allow learners to see that success can look different. There isn't necessarily one model of excellence. Spotting errors in others' work can also be useful. Pupils who have established what not to do using anonymised pieces of learning are less likely to make the same errors in their own work. All of these activities can be completed independently, in groups, or as a class. Work could be put under a visualiser, and that lets learners see the process. And highlight or discuss. Modelling how to do or not to do something, for example, is also useful. Modelling how to write a sentence using capital letter and full stop, or how not to write a sentence by missing those things out. Again, doing it under a visualiser lets learners see the process. Choose, swap, choose is a partner activity where learners choose something which they have completed successfully in their task. They can then swap their work with a partner, and their partner chooses something successful as well. And then together they can share what they chose and explain why. Finally, ink spill or blankety blank can be used once learning intention and success criteria have been formulated to reinforce or recap previously constructed learning intention and success criteria. Here are the learning intention and success criteria from the previous slides about writing clear instructions, but you can see that in blankety blank, key words have been blanked out, and the learners could work with a partner or as a whole class to try and work out what the blanks are. In ink spill, ink, or it could be mud, has been splattered all over the 3 success criteria, and learners have to formulate the success criteria based on previous knowledge of what makes a successful set of instructions. Both of these activities offer a way to revisit or retrieve previous knowledge and understanding. Blankety blank offers more of a support or a scaffold than ink spill does. There's lots of ways to check in about how children feel about their learning. Here's just a few. But it's important when you're thinking about which way to use that you pick the right tool for the right job. It's also important that once you've completed the activity, that you use the information that you gather. So, for example, when we use a thumbs up or thumbs down, for example, we ask our learners why they said that and share with them how that impacts on our next steps. A blob tree is a really visual way to ask children about their learning. Children are asked where they see themselves on the tree. Are they somebody who's finding the learning difficult, so they're one of the blue blobs down at the bottom of the tree? Or maybe they're feeling good about their learning and confident, and they're the purple blob at the top of the tree. But can they explain why? And how is this going to impact on the next part of their learning? Corners game is a cooperative learning game. Emoji faces can be placed around the room, showing an emoji face that is happy or sad, or with a straight face, and children can choose which picture shows how they're feeling about their learning, and they can discuss it with somebody else who went to the same corner, and then feed back to the teacher. An inside-outside circle is also a cooperative learning game, where a group of children or a class can form two circles. The inside circle turns round to face the outside circle, and the children can talk about their learning based on a question from the teacher. The outside circle can then move round so that children work with different learners or their peers. Finally, you may want to consider this challenge question from Higgies 4. Thinking about our approaches to sharing and co-constructing learning intention and success criteria, how well do we make use of a range of valid, reliable and relevant assessment tools and approaches, including the ones discussed in this video, to support the improvement of children and young people's learning? Thanks for listening.